Just about no fans of any kind in Miami this weekend. The Guardians' home run aided tool, or Marlins fans for that matter, as the Guardians took care of business in Miami.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockdown to get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I have some thoughts and takes on announcing and television announcers that we will get to in today's show because, oh boy, was Saturday the opposite of a treat. A punishment, a torture. I stopped watching. I'll be honest, it got so bad. But first, I am Jeff Ellis, one of your hosts here, and I was one of the original hosts of the Locked On MLB podcast network. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7, focused on the MLB draft and the prospects, as well as your fifth favorite writer at every Cleveland baseball blog you've ever read, and an occasional contributor to Prospects Live.
I'm Justin Latta, your other co-host. I've been covering Cleveland's minor league system since 2007 and the former editor of Guardians Baseball Insider, my own newsletter now at Next Year in Cleveland, and occasionally at the News Herald, the Morning Journal. And I also am an occasional contributor of Prospects Live. And this is Locked On Guardians, your daily Cleveland Guardians podcast. And if this is your first time here, or if it's not, we're happy to have you. We dive into all things Cleveland Guardians every day from the majors, minors, and of course the draft. So if you need your daily fix of Cleveland Guardians discussion, you've come to the right place. Become an everydayer if you're not already, and shout out to everydayers. It was one everydayer you wanted to shout out at the top.
Yeah, we got Jordan Myers. You amused me on the YouTube comments. For those who missed it, who wanted, he was just bold of you to think I know 4 other sports bloggers. So that was a very
I only
fun
subscribe
comment.
to Jeff Ellis. That's my only notification.
I mean, I do so little writing anymore, then you would be illiterate. Like too many people. Moving on. We could talk about the announcers who felt that way. I'm gonna stop. I'm just being mean now.
Yeah,
that was ugly.
We'll work that in.
We'll work our way to that trip to Miami. I won't lie. I was a little bit nervous.
Miami.
No,
I had to throw Will Smith lyric in.
No,
did you know the slogan of Miami is "Power of Will"? I went to go see Bad Boys over the weekend. By the way,
I did not. I have not.
Did you see Bad Boys?
Since the second? I have not seen one since the second one. I haven't seen any of the more recent ones.
It's so good.
But I won't lie. I was a little bit nervous because we've seen, listen, this team got rocked by the White Sox. Like that's the one team that really, and the Astros, who I believe are still under 5. Like they have struggled to put away bad teams. Like they have, and today, when Friday, I just sat there and watched it. And then Saturday, like they exploded. And then today I was like, oh no. And, it Jaws theme in my mind. But eventually, this was a toothless shark. This was a whale shark. This was not a great white. And with the way the draft shapes up, the Marlins are your favorite to be the first overall pick because the White Sox can't have it. So we'll have to see what happens. But this team made the postseason a year ago and then tried to make their GM take a demotion. And when she said no, they kind of set up
brought in a Rays executive, but
which I'm not opposed to.
They've had a lot of injuries too, to be fair. I mean, they're missing 3 of their best pitchers due to injuries.
I mean, so many injuries to the pitching staff. Like
their offense,
it's been crazy. But they let Solar walk, which is not that he's, last time I checked, having a great year, but they were a team that overachieved, and I think we knew regression was likely to come. It has come hard, and now they are. I mean, they're a bad team. Yeah, this is a bad team.
The White Sox are keeping them out of being the worst team in baseball.
But
good trip to Miami for Cleveland. No
Cleveland took care of business.
They sure did. I had to laugh. You're talking about announcing. I had to laugh. So Friday, I had to come home and rewatch the game because I went to go see Bad Boys on Friday. So I didn't catch the early part of the game. And
I was texting you angrily.
Yeah, you were angrily. So I was getting in my car to drive home, and I caught the last couple of innings. And I had to laugh. Jim Rosenhaus said, this crowd of just under 11,000 gets on its feet. And I'm just like, wow, people in Miami don't love their baseball. They got 2 world championships, but they've been a terrible franchise around those 2 world championships, but whatever. But good weekend for the Guardians in terms of hitting with runners in scoring position. Friday, they were 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. Friday was not good. And that continued the issue from Thursday with the Royals.
KC series.
And yeah, let's be honest. Like, I know a lot of people want to believe that there is some sort of art or science or trick to hitting with runners in scoring position. Good hitters hit. Like, and obviously you want Jose Ramirez up with runners in scoring position. Doesn't mean he's always going to get a hit with runners in scoring position, but you want him up because you want good players up. But these things are going to go in cycles. Like, they've been a good team this year hitting with runners on. And again, we've talked about this multiple times. The advantages do favor the hitter with runners on because you're putting the pitcher and the defense. Like, look what happened in the KC series. People lost their minds. Again, we've talked about this last week. People lost their minds at Bobby Witt's error. The Mariners the Royals came back Friday night against the Mariners.
They blew an 8-run lead.
Yeah, 2 errors in the 9th inning helped the Royals come back and win that game. Now, the Royals had to do a lot of work to get there for sure. So I'm not discounting their win at all. I'm just saying, like, when you put pressure on the other team, you see if they're going to make an error or not. And if you're not a great team, chances are you might crack under pressure. That's what we talked about last week with the Witt error.
Or even in Sunday's game, if you look at before, I think Freeman's home run, wasn't it? Where the terrible plays on the infield to set things up for the Marlins, like, bad teams crack under pressure. And a year ago, and that was one of the reasons we had issues a year ago with this team is, like, one, it just felt like everything was.
They found some ways to lose. Correct.
They always find a way to lose. And this year that is not the case.
Yeah. So again, runners in scoring position, multiple runners on, puts pressure on the pitchers and the defense. So it's going to be more advantageous no matter who's at the plate. Obviously, again, you want Quan up, you want Jose up. We could have a discussion whether or not you want Josh Naylor up right now, and who else you want up in that situation. Like, to start the year, Andres Gimenez was like the best guy in the league with runners on. And guess what? He
still had the highest batting average going into the KC series, or was it Colorado? He still had and I was listening to, because I like to listen to the outside broadcast. It gives me an idea just to hear what other teams say. Mm-hmm. I listen to the good and the bad. By the way, Marlins radio good, TV not good. At least in my exposure, I know they have different setups for that. But one of those talked about Andres Gimenez as the highest batting average with runners in scoring position. And since then, he has died like a dog in the street. It has been ugly.
It's cyclical. It just depends on how you're going at any given time.
No, agreed.
You might be up with opportunity or not. And it depends on how the guys in front of you are doing too. Because, one of the things we want to talk about today too was this team's issues with stolen bases. They rank eighth. They rank 8th in baseball in steals, but their success rate is not a great one. And they ran themselves out of some opportunities Friday, which could help them sweep the series. And then look, Saturday they did what they needed to do. The pitcher for the Marlins, Munoz, has not been good this year. He doesn't have a lot of control. They hammered him. They hammered the first guy to the bullpen. They got a big lead. They did what they're supposed to do. Like, kudos to them. Also, I want to shout out Brian Rocchio for his first home run. Not necessarily just hitting the first home run, but I don't know if you caught the dugout reaction to the home run. Like, I thought it was really interesting that, and I know this was a story going back to spring training, that with Rocchio and Arias both kind of competing for the shortstop job in spring training and whatever. Did you see him and Arias were like hugging and they were jump hugging? And I just thought, like, for all the things we've heard about Arias, like work ethic or just, not being thrilled with his role or whatever it is, for him to be the guy that is in the dugout celebrating with Rocchio like that for his first home run, when those two guys were essentially competing for at-bats, and they kind of are in some different ways. I think that speaks a lot to,
I think that's part of why
the chemistry in this clubhouse.
I think he's also someone the guys like. Remember a year ago, the talk was that, like, Ahmed and Jose took him under their wing and were working with him. I think there is, and I think there's probably some of that shared Latin American, experience that helps.
Sure, they're both from Venezuela. Yeah, they're both from Venezuela, so there is that. But I just thought that was a cool moment. Like, he had his first career home run, so good for Rocchio. We're hoping for more offense there for him. But I just thought that was a really cool moment. It just kind of shows you a little window of this team and how they operate and how this team feels about each other. And I know, again, these are one of those things you can't measure. And I know some people get frustrated with things you can't measure, but I hate to say it, those kind of things matter. Like, when you are a team like Cleveland, who is trying to win a division title after not being great a year ago, and you're kind of an underdog because you don't have the lineup that the Yankees have or whatever. You don't have, pitching has been just okay for most of the year as starting concern. Like, that stuff can kind of glue you together. And I think that really helps. Like, Austin Hedges, again, I go back to the Austin Hedges thing. Like, Texas didn't trade for him for no reason. They didn't play him. Like, he was on the roster. He didn't play, but just one of those things. But overall, good weekend. Logan Allen looked good Friday, except for 2 solos, which, as long as you're not walking guys, you live with those, no problem from him. Lively was good Saturday. Right? Well, that I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I want to say they were back-to-back. They could be wrong. Yeah, I mean, in Lively, future Cy Young Award winner, Ben Lively, the man full of options. Full of options. More
options than Blake, even though they get confused for each other, apparently. He was good, and I saw they said that they didn't send him back out for the 6th because the Guardians had a long offensive inning, and he just kind of felt like cold or like he wasn't as warm as he wanted. So I don't think there's anything to that, which is good.
No, I wouldn't get to
Carrasco.
He's only thrown 9 innings through the third time through the order in this year.
That's fine, yeah. And then Carrasco was solid early on Sunday. He kind of hit the skids.
He's a free and fly guy. Like his data, I think I sent it to you. It's like essentially he might be good out of the pen, but like he is.
That'll be interesting.
That second time through, he gets shaky, and the third time he gets home run prone. So.
Yeah, I mean, the velocity is fine where it is. I think the stuff is decent. Like, the slider looks okay. The changeup looks okay. I think he can get misses with those. But I agree. I think a bullpen spot might be best for him long term. But Pedro Vila was fantastic in long relief this weekend, and his ERA continues to go down, so he serves a good role. So I'll be very curious to see what they do when Williams comes back. But again, these things always work themselves out too. Also want to talk about we'll talk about Gavin Williams' most recent rehab start and just how this rotation looks going forward when he comes back, but also the way Daniel Schneemann continues to be utilized and sees playing time, and how this team is going to find the right roster fits and just overall what they're going to do going forward, going to the trading deadline, because there are some guys they probably want to get answers on. There are some guys that deserve opportunities, and they have a very limited window to do it. And I'm curious to see how they operate with that. We talked about it before, but I want to go kind of back into it today, and then we'll react to the mock draft from last week that we promised on Friday. So all that coming up. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled traders, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, you can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. How important is it to call customer service and get a real person every single time? Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. And then, as we know, summertime means baseball. The NBA finals are going on, of course, and I know the Stanley Cup finals are going on as well. You can bet on all of it at FanDuel. So the Guardians are off Monday, but Tristan McKenzie's pitching Tuesday at Great American Ballpark. He has been very homer prone his last few starts. I would probably, if it were me, I'd be checking on the over-under on homers. I'd probably bet on some Reds that hit some home runs. That's just the way he's been lately at that ballpark. And I love it. And then Tanner Bybee goes on Wednesday versus Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo's been really good. That should be, even in that ballpark, I'd be curious to look at the over-under on that game too, because those two guys have been throwing very well. And the Guardians are hitting a lot of home runs, so maybe they'll do better there offensively. Maybe they're bringing their fans to Cincinnati. I don't know. So right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets and win any winning $5 bet. So $200 you can use to bet on everything from the Finals MVP, Celtics are up 2-0, and who's going to hit one out of the park on Tuesday off Tristan McKenzie? Hopefully not, but we'll see. Visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Of course, as we said, the Guardians are off on Monday, but Tuesday they are back in action from the Great American Ballpark. Can catch all the action, I believe. Jim Rosenhaus and Pat Tabler are going to have that one, so just search for Guardians on your Sirius XM app.
I've enjoyed the Pat Tabler editions.
I think Pat Tabler's been pretty good in his roles. He's done some TV, he's done some radio. I've very much enjoyed him, so that's exciting.
He's the Daniel Schneemann of the broadcast, right?
Yeah, and then I saw the thing today. What was it? Daniel Schneemann's played like 6 positions in his first
6 games. First guy to do that.
Yeah, which again doesn't surprise me. I enjoy the way Stephen Vogt has utilized him. I
agreed.
I think it's interesting, though.
I've just enjoyed every way Stephen Vogt has used pretty much everyone, but it just does get highlighted here.
Yeah, it's very minimal complaints. I mean, you're 20 games above 500. You're not going to complain about much. But I think the interesting thing about the way he's been used is that, he played against the lefty this weekend, obviously today, on Sunday, over Will Brennan, right? Or no, did Will Brennan play Sunday? No, he didn't, right?
He pinch hit later in the game.
Pinch it later in the game. So Schneemann got to start in right field to go against the lefty because they just don't have a righty in that situation unless you do Gabriel Arias in right field, which it's been a while. Maybe it could have been David Fry if Bo Naylor wasn't nursing the shoulder, but Hedges played Saturday. But he's kind of, I don't want to say taking at bats because he's earned his opportunities, but
yes,
he has wrestled some at bats at shortstop. He's wrestling some at bats in center field. And that's the kind of thing I'm kind of curious about the rest of the next month and a half for this team before the trade deadline. Because again, I believe this team needs to be serious about what they add at the deadline, not necessarily again saying they need to mortgage the entire future for this year, but they need to add pieces for this year and try for it. But you don't know. I don't know. The reviews on Will Brennan, I think, are just very average. Again, you and I both loved Will Brennan coming up. We thought he was going to be a piece of this future, and
it's been disappointing. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he's been a fourth outfielder. So you're working Schneemann into right field. So Brennan's losing playing time. You've worked him into center, and Brennan's been fine. He's been good. Not Brennan, I'm sorry, Freeman. You've worked him into shortstop, where Brocchio has just been he's been below average offensively. Let's just be honest. The walks are fine. But you're finding ways to use him. I think he's more like a David Fry. I think he's a guy that you can play 5 days a week and have him as an option. I think him and Fry might have a nice balance in terms of patience, good approach, versatility. They have opposite hands, which is nice. And they give your roster a ton of flexibility to play with. I think that opens up a lot of opportunities. The question I really have, though, is Schneemann is wrestling away at bats from various guys in this roster. Is it enough to, again, I don't want to start him every day. I don't think, maybe, but is it enough where you're considering, okay, he can handle playing shortstop. He can handle playing right field. Do you demote one of these guys who are struggling and get somebody else an opportunity? A George Valera, a John Kensley Noel, a Juan Brito, although bringing up Brito requires moving Jimenez to short. I suppose you can give Tena a shot at shortstop because he's a good defender, but I'm not in love with the approach there. But that's my biggest question about these next 6 weeks is how is this team going to find opportunities for Schneemann and for other guys that they need to see in between what they're going to do at the deadline? Because once the deadline hits, it's kind of time to get serious, right? Not that they're not serious now, but you know what I mean?
No, yeah, you have to see what you have. And I don't know, at this point with the way shortstop is gone, it's the same thing I talked about last week. You don't necessarily have to find your answer at shortstop now. You have to find your answer at shortstop for right now. You don't have to find the answer for long term. You don't have to find the guy who's going to be the guy for the next decade when your rest of your team is going well. And that is the biggest offensive black hole right now. You have to just find, if you find Oscar Gonzalez, that works. It doesn't mean he's gonna whoever they have there. Now, could Schneemann end up being better than that? I think so. There is some passivity, but I think he hits the ball. He hits the ball hard. I'm not saying he's a power hitter, but he hits the ball hard. He makes solid contact. He works counts, and this team needs maybe a little bit more passivity. So if Schneemann's taken more and it allows them to perform, good. I will stand on my hill that the starting pitching is first, second, and third biggest demand right now on this team before I even consider a bat. It's just the issues with the starters are just so much higher overall. And when it comes to Brennan, it just every time we think he's going to turn a corner, he stumbles back again. He's not. He played every game in this series, so it's disingenuous to say he's not playing all the time. But you have to know what you have in Valera. And I am just getting close to that point of Valera at every point where those two were prospects, he was the higher rated guy, though we know people in the organization did not agree with the consensus field. So maybe, give Valera a shot, right? And here's the thing, Florio cleared waivers, so he is going to be in AAA as your depth guy the rest of the year. Essentially, a year ago, he cleared waivers for the Yankees, and no one wanted him.
At the same time,
Yeah, so you got to see what you got. I know people will bring up Noel, and Noel's doing some positive things. I can sit here and say he's cut down on his Ks. There's still some passivity, and there is, genuine huge raw power. But he's also a first base DH. Like let's be honest, at least Valera is someone who can handle those outfield spots and give you a little bit more flexibility, though you probably need to see both. So if you're going to call up, but you also need to see with Rodriguez because he's in the same boat. So at some point they're going to have to figure it out with all of those guys. But I don't know. You got Schneemann here. Let's see what he can do. Let's see if he can keep it up. Ride the hot hand as long as you can.
Yeah, I agree. Ride the hot hand for sure. I just think with Schneemann being here and you know what he can do, do you use it as an opportunity to maybe swap out a roster spot? Like, okay, Brennan is just not giving you a ton right now. And I know they're replacing Schneemann in games mostly for defense. So if you brought up a Valera, I guess you're not really replacing him in right field. He's fine. He's not great. And the thing with Noel is true. It's very telling to me that, and it's always been telling. I've watched him enough play the outfield, and I don't believe he's an outfielder. He's got enough arm, but the rest of it's not a great package. But when Manzardo got called up, Manzardo was the primary first baseman in AAA. When Manzardo got called up, Noel has played almost exclusively first base. So he's had a couple of games elsewhere, but they pretty much shifted him back to first base when the opportunity was open instead of Mike Capriz. So I think that tells you where they believe he is defensively. But again, the thing is, we always go back to, these guys are both out of options at the end of the year. Going into 2025, neither guy has an option. So you go to spring training, and do you go into spring training with, well, we haven't seen what these guys can do at the major league level, or, do you get him a shot this year? It's a very risky opportunity. That's what I'm saying. Schneemann might give you, I know he's a rookie and it's hard to say this, and he's young in terms of experience, but does he give you a degree of quote unquote floor safety where okay, we demote Brennan because we have Schneemann. Let's use it as an opportunity to bring up a Noel or Valera or, just to get an opportunity for one of those guys, because you don't necessarily need to give Schneemann every day at bats. You can, but you can also work him in because he could be a weapon off the bench because he's got a great approach at the plate and he does hit the ball hard, and he can also play just about anywhere. So I think it maybe opens up spots on your roster, but they need to get opportunities for these guys, because I hate to go into the trading deadline without any sort of real answer on them, because at that point you really don't want to be screwing around with that stuff. You want to have your team in place if you're going for it as far as the division goes. All right, we'll quickly talk about Gavin Williams, and then we'll talk about the latest mock from MLB Pipeline over the weekend and just some general stuff in college baseball over the weekend. It is exciting times, but it's also silly season in terms of draft and college baseball stuff, and we'll get into all that.
But first, are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect. Hey, we love our prospects, and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, I was literally on it before the show today. Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial. That's one of the longest free trials we offer with anyone at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon, all one word, and get started today.
Enjoy whatever you're going to do Monday with the Guardians being off, but Tuesday, make sure you are somewhere with your Sirius XM app so you can search Guardians and listen to the action from the Guardians and Reds at Great American Ballpark. Sorry. The Guardians won't need fans down there for that. The ball will fly all on its own down in Cincinnati. Very quickly, Gavin Williams had another rehab start Sunday at Columbus. He threw 50 pitches. He struck out 3 in 3+ innings. He got into the 4th inning, but gave up a double and a homer. He was generally about 95, 96 with the fastball. He has continued to introduce that cutter. He threw all of his pitches at different times. I thought he looked pretty good. I watched most of the start online, whatever. But he looked pretty solid again. But 50 pitches, I think getting to that fourth inning, you're just seeing some stamina stuff and just some general rust. So it would not surprise me if it's another 2 starts. Like I for sure won, but I wouldn't be shocked if there's a second start as well for him before he comes back. And also allows them to just make a decision on what they're going to do with the rotation and whether or not they want to move Carrasco to the bullpen, because right now he's lined up on that day. Avila's been good. But, these things take care of themselves. Remember that by the time that happens, you never know. Also, want to know another prospect. Chase DeLauder did not play at Portland all weekend. He hasn't played since May 28th with what they're calling a toe sprain in his non-surgically repaired foot. So that's his left foot. But he has been day-to-day since May 28th, since that happened. That's the day he came back from his foot injury on the surgically repaired foot. So,
not ideal.
I don't know. Availability is extremely important in any sport, and just makes me nervous. So, we promised on Friday, we didn't get to it. We promised we would react to the MLB Pipeline latest mock. We do love Jim Callis on the show. Jim Callis is an industry favorite.
He's the godfather of it.
He is. And he is, I like the way he wrote this mock. Like, here's the thing. A lot of people will tell you, oh, I'm hearing this, or oh, I'm hearing that. And here's what I think. And here's what people are saying. Jim Callis, this is why I give him so much credit. He was straight up honest. He said most clubs believe the Guardians will take Bazzana because he fits their model. He's the best pure hitter available. But the thing to point out here is most clubs. He's not saying I'm hearing from anonymous sources. He's not blah, blah, blah. I'm hearing this. He is straight up saying most clubs, meaning the Guardians are not the one telling him this. And of course, that's not a shock. The Guardians aren't going to telegraph anything unless they're trying to play games. But like, be careful about who you believe this time of year, because
when you hear someone say "I hear,"
so tight-lipped anyway.
When you say "I hear," it's from an agent or a parent, and that's one of those things. Like running the show over the last 5 years now. The rise of information from parents is gone up, I'd say about 100%. Like parents through Twitter reach out to people who talk to their son. I talk to parents? Yes, I do. Often it's little things here or there, or they'll give me information where I'm incorrect and I'll correct my data. We have had information from parents about breaking news we chose not to break because we don't have the sources beyond that parent. But because of this world now, there is so much information out there that you can't always check, recheck, or have, but some people still run with it anyways. And when you hear like, oh, this is what is happening, or I am hearing that the Guardians like this player, that is either an agent saying this, or that is
another team,
or it is, I don't even necessarily know if it's another team, because teams teams are also very coy right now. Having talked to my people who are connected to teams, it's parents or it's agents. Honestly, it is parents or agents. Whenever you see the words, I am hearing from a source, that source is a parent or agent.
Yeah. So give Callis credit. Bazzana #1 overall. And that was based also on, they did a survey of different evaluators, guys that are cross-checkers and different scouts, not decision makers, but also just guys across baseball. It was 28 of them. And they didn't obviously identify all of their positions, and obviously no teams. But it came back as, I think, 17 were for Bazzana #1, and I think it was 6 for Condon #2. And I don't necessarily know. They clarified, saying not necessarily the best player, but the guy they think is going to go #1. But again, this is what other teams believe Cleveland is going to do. Cleveland is incredibly quiet. We always know this.
They also had their data on who people thought would go 1, and a lot of people who think should go 1, and most people still had Bazzana. And that's why Pipeline has gone away from the consensus and have him 1. Yeah. And the consensus was never based off of, that was media consensus, not analysis consensus.
Correct. And the last line too, surprisingly little buzz about Condon #1, despite him and Bazzana separating themselves from the rest of the pack. That to me says either clubs just believe Cleveland is going to go with Bazzana, or this is just Cleveland. Again, Cleveland's not going to telegraph anything. We know how quiet they are.
Nobody had him on Ralphie a year ago. There was not one connection to him a year ago.
No, there are people in the organization who don't know what they're going to do, and they work on the draft process. Like
Yeah.
they don't even telegraph that stuff down to other guys in their system until the day of. So I wouldn't necessarily say we both believe it's going to be Bazzana, and we both like Bazzana number one. But I also wouldn't say like the fact there's no buzz about Condon doesn't mean they're not interested in him. That's just all leverage. That's just there's quietness about it. They're not going to telegraph anything. So I also wouldn't read into that as they're not interested in Condon. I just think that's just also them being very close to the vest with their cards, and it doesn't take them out of it. But also, they mentioned Burns as plan B for discount Weatherholt and Griffin. I think Weatherholt's out. Some people are saying dark horse. I think he's out. And honestly, I think it's a huge mistake to go with Weatherholt because this team has gambled on health in the past. Espino, DeLauder, Aiken, they've taken shots on guys that fell even Gavin Williams. Jeff, you said yourself, some teams didn't even have Gavin Williams on their board either because of health issues. This team has gambled on health in the first round because they thought it gave them access to talent they wouldn't otherwise get in the first round because of where they're picking. You're picking number one overall. Do not take the discount and say, well, we'll get a discount and save it for later and use it on a guy like Weatherholt who's had soft tissue injuries. Like, I think Weatherholt might be a good player at the next level. I really do. But this is not a pick you go out and you risk. You take, I think it's cut and dry. I like Chase Burns. I think it's cut and dry. I think it's Bazzana or Condon, truthfully, and you don't screw around with these two because this team has had enough issues with health risks already, and you can't screw picking number one up the way you can at 15 or 20. Nothing new.
No, I listen, I'm kind of okay with Burns in that conversation. I know people won't love that. That's where I differ from you, but it's like he's had a clean health track record, and not that means anything, but in the grand scheme, it is pitchers. But like, I mean, for me, it's Bazzana all the way. Like, I'm going to be now. I've hit that point where like I've gotten.
It should be correct.
I had a 2-hour conversation with someone on Friday who, after the call with me, talked to two team scouting directors. Can't say who I talked to, but I can say I talked to someone who immediately followed our 2-hour conversation by talking to 2 scouting directors. And, there was a lot of good information back and forth, including like teams worried about Weatherholt, teams who are worried about that soft tissue stuff and aren't as jazzed about him in the top 10. Like, there's a world where he ends up going to like the Cubs or Red Sox because there's some concerns with that. But overall, if they go Condon, I'll be like, okay. If they go Bazzana, I'm going to be happy. If they go Burns, I'll be concerned, but I'll also be like, okay. If it's anyone else, I'm going to have big concerns, honestly, overall. I think Nick Kurtz is probably the 4th guy I would put on my list right now. And I don't love a first baseman at 1, and that has always been my stance. So at least I'm consistent. Yeah.
Also, let's say before we get out of here for today, let's say this. If you're watching, I've enjoyed the heck out of the regionals and super regionals so far, minus, the usual coaches abusing certain
James Tibbs.
Yeah, he's been awesome. But remember not to get carried away with 1 or 2 game performances. Like, yes, you're facing good competition, but you're also facing guys that have been run to the ground pitching wise, and it's not a good year for pitching, as we know. And it's 1 or 2 game sample sizes. 1 or 2 games in this environment does not supersede what a guy has been doing for 48 months or, however long 2 college baseball seasons is, like 3 months, 4 months. So that's 8 months of ball plus the Cape or whatever they've done. And a month of college baseball playoffs does not change what you've done your sophomore year, your junior year, your Cape. That stuff all supersedes a weekend. Like, is it part of it? Sure, but it's not going to sway things one way or another.
Yeah, and you can look no farther than Chase DeLauder for an example of them kind of straight out ignoring. I mean, his last weekend against Florida State, he got decimated by Hubbard and Messick. And so that stuff doesn't matter. The Cape is where they place their value. We were talking today, Andrew Calica inducted in the Cape Hall of Fame, 2-time Guardians draft pick. Like, the Cape is a big thing to them. So join us for the rest of the week. We're gonna have a lot of fun covering your first base team while talking about what's happening in college baseball right now. Oregon State has 2 runs while being no hit. So college baseball is weird. We will have plenty to talk about. So thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. Leave some iTunes reviews, and go Guardians, go.